So today I thought I would show you a recent pickup of mine. This is a Japanese Panasonic 3DO FZ-1 model. Now this one cost me about half as much as a fully working example would have cost because it was faulty. It was listed on eBay as not reading discs, so I bought it. I also made an assumption that it would be due to the laser pickup, so I ended up buying a couple of laser pickups as well from AliExpress. Yeah, rule number one, don't make assumptions, because as you'll see, I'll show you what the cause of the problem was as to why this 3DO didn't appear to play any discs. So this console is one that, it's an example of a machine that didn't make the grade. Myself and a really good friend of mine, the Chorizo machine, we did a video on his channel about the 32-bit era, or the 5th generation of video game consoles, which the 3DO was in, and we talk about this machine, and yeah, it's an interesting video. Please check it out. I'll put a link in the description below to the Chorizo Machine's channel and that particular video cast, Chorizo cast, that me and Mike did. So anyway, the 3DO. This machine came out before the Sony PlayStation, it came out before the Sega Saturn and before the N64, and indeed those three consoles, they're the ones that typically we all think about when we talk about that generation. So let's have a quick look at the 3DO. I've got one of the controllers here. This controller is not too bad. The only thing I don't like about the 3DO controller is how stiff the D-pad is. It feels a little bit too stiff. But yet you've got your stop and also play pause buttons, which are marked up as X and P as well. You've got ABC buttons with a little indentation in the B button. You've also got shoulder buttons and what looks like a connector up here because, yeah, that's interesting. And I'll come on to that in a moment. And you've got a headphone jack and a volume slider because the audio from the games can actually come through the controller and you can plug headphones in. But it doesn't mute the audio that comes out the back of this machine to your television. So, yeah. Bear that in mind if you ever did decide to pick up a 3DO and use headphones. People will still be able to hear what you're playing and the sound that's coming out of this. So yeah, the controller, not terribly bad. I mean, it works. It's just that D-pad I'm not a huge fan of. Also, and this will give a clue to the next thing I'm going to talk about, I've got another example of a 3DO controller here. You can see Gold Star branded. That's because Gold Star were one of the companies that manufactured 3DO machines as well. This one, the directional pad, that doesn't feel too bad. Again, you've got a headphone jack and a volume control, which is awesome. Indentation, the B button. Yeah, this controller's not too bad. And again, that controller port connector on top. Because the 3DO has only got one controller port. So in order to play games with 2 or more players, you would need to daisy chain the controllers together using them connectors that you saw on top of the controllers, which personally I don't think is a terribly bad idea. But it means that if any one player in that chain was losing, decided to rage quit, they could pull the cable out and everybody else on that chain wouldn't be able to play the game. So yeah, a little bit annoying. At the front of the unit, we've got the 3DO logo. We've also got some ready and access lights. So the ready is when the machine's turned on and the access light flickers when the CD drive is being accessed. You've got an open button, the tray comes out. And if we just take a quick look to the side, there's an expansion connector here. Just flick that flap down. Can you see there? AV expansion. Because there was a planned expansion called M2 for the 3DO, which kind of never came to be. And if we look round the back, we've got another expansion, which I think is for memory cards. Mode select. I'm not entirely sure what the mode select does. We've got S-Video, which is how I use this 3DO with my FrameMeister. And we've got composite video plus the phono audio jacks for the stereo sound. And the power cable, which in my case is a Japanese power cable, is hardwired into the back of the unit. As you can see there, model number FZ-1. Panasonic also brought out a model a little bit later on called the FZ-10, and that was a top loader rather than a tray mechanism. So yeah, people preferred the FZ-10 because of reliability, because of the lack of a motorised tray, but this machine, other than the disc reading issue, the tray still works fine and the mechanism looks absolutely fine. Now, the 3DO company did things a bit differently, because when you think today about Nintendo, Sony and Microsoft, they typically make their own consoles, or they have a company that manufactures the hardware once the specification's been drawn up. However, with the 3DO, things worked differently. I assumed for a number of years, incorrectly, that Panasonic, they were the brainchild behind the 3DO. It was their thing. 3DO console was down to Panasonic. It wasn't. It was down to the 3DO company, which was founded by Trip Hawkins. Some of you guys may know Trip Hawkins, as he was the founder of Electronic Arts, and I've actually interacted with Trip Hawkins on social media, which has been really cool. And again, in regards to 3DO consoles. So 3DO company essentially drew up a specification, and they basically, for a licensing fee, would have said to consumer electronics manufacturers, as long as you manufacture a machine that meets the specifications we've drawn up to play the 3DO software, and it has a 3DO logo on the device itself, you can go ahead and manufacture and sell 3DO consoles. But that created a huge problem, unfortunately, due to the way this whole thing was set up. Because typically, console manufacturers, they take a hit, so they take a loss on the machine initially, so they'll sell these at a loss, because they know that they'll make money on the software, on the games that they sell. The problem with the way the 3DO model worked is because you had these three different manufacturers, Panasonic being one, Gold Star being another one, and I actually do have a Gold Star 3DO that's currently being looked at and repaired by an awesome retro gaming repairer, Simon Locke. I have got some footage of my Gold Star 3DO when it was sort of working. And also Sanyo, but their 3DO model called the Tri was essentially only released in Japan. So unless you've imported one, or someone that you knew imported one, you've probably never seen a 3DO, a Tri 3DO from Sanyo. And the problem with that was, because the only way that Panasonic would make money, and Sanyo and Gold Star, off of the 3DO machines, these were so expensive. Because of course Panasonic wouldn't have wanted to make this at a loss, because they're going to make no money whatsoever from this whole 3DO situation. So why would they? Same for Gold Star, same for Sanyo. So this machine was ridiculously expensive. I think it was about 600 Great British pounds, nearly 700 US dollars in 1993. So here's a couple of examples of typical 3D games and the boxes they came in, certainly over here in Europe. You can see I've got the original Road and Track Presents the Need for Speed, and also Road Rash. These are the original versions. These came out before the Sony PlayStation and Sega Saturn ports. And in fact, the Need for Speed on 3DO is different because it's a head-to-head racing game for the most part, and you race against Mr. X. In fact, there's FMV sequences, rather cheesy ones, where Mr. X basically will make fun of you if you lose, or be all bitter and twisted if you beat him. But I like that. It added character to this version of Need for Speed, and I think it was a shame they took him out with the PlayStation, Saturn and PC ports. And I actually like this game. I think this version is my favourite version. And of course Road Rash, again, this is the original version, but the game is virtually the same across all the other machines, except I think the music is different. The music on this game is much more basic compared to how it is on PlayStation, Saturn and PC. So, as I mentioned earlier on, this 3DO was faulty. So weirdly, it's sort of working. Very weird. It's making some noises, but it is sort of working. But that gear is causing all sorts of problems. Well, that cog is just barely hanging on, and this is the first time I've seen this 3DO actually working. It's madness. But yeah, it does make some rather sort of noises reading the disc, but yeah, it's actually sort of working now, which is good. And it is unbelievable to think that just a little crack in this, which is going to be super, super hard to film, so I apologise for that, but there's a tiny, tiny crack in this gear, and that is what the cause of this 3DO not working was, because it was binding up. The sled was binding up when I was trying to load a game. So what I did, and this was before watching an awesome video by another YouTuber, Mark Fixes Stuff, I actually bought some 3D printed gears here, some 3D printed cogs. But unfortunately this one is too big, so what happens is, again, it still binds up. This is just a bit too big. But thankfully on AliExpress I managed to find some other gears that were more of the original size with an original worm drive. And that's what's in the machine now, and it works great. But you know how I said about not making assumptions? Well, it was actually a good thing that I bought a laser in the end, because in all my messing about of disconnecting and reconnecting the laser unit, I actually tore the ribbon cable. So in the end I needed those extra lasers that I ended up buying. So it was quite good that I did that in the end. The other thing is, as well, The 3DO, for the most part and most models, there is no copy protection, so you can literally just burn games quite easily. You can see here a copy of Total Eclipse that I've burnt off, and also Crash and Burn. So you can easily do that with most 3DO models. There are some that do have copy protection, which the Gold Star 3DO that I've got has copy protection, where it'll just kick the disc straight back out at you, so you'll know that. But I don't think it's overall that common for a 3DO to have copy protection, certainly not these Panasonic FZ-1 and FZ-10 models. You're less likely to have any issues with those with these games. You may have to tweak your laser ever so slightly to read some of these discs, but you know, it works. And I'm really, really pleased to have a 3DO and to add that to my collection, because it's a system that I've always been curious about what it would be like to play a game on one, to own one, etc. And now I've actually got one. So guys, thanks as ever for watching, and I'll catch you again soon.